Hey everyone, how's it going? Back with our final video in the Mastering the Basics series. The entire series will be complete after this video. We've covered a lot of stuff over the past several weeks, from diet to movement and sleep, and now wrapping it up with stress. And the final topic of stress this week. Last week we talked a little bit about some tools you can use in the moment when you're experiencing a lot of stress. So it's those times where you just get caught up in things, you realize that your stress bucket, as they say, is overflowing. There's too much going on, and you're really stressed out, and you need some way to alleviate that stress. And so we talked about a few tools last week, things like your breath and widening your gaze and spending some time outside in nature and just carving out some self time. Um, all these tools that you can use in the moment to help alleviate that stress when you realize, oh, I've something's up here, my bucket's overflowing, and I need to alleviate some stress, right? So those are things you can do in that moment of of stress, and to help calm yourself down and get back to uh, hopefully a normal level of stress. But after that happens, that your work is not done, right? We need to You realize you're in a stressful period of your life, and to prevent you having to rely on those tools constantly, we want to mitigate the stress. We want to take some things out of that bucket so it's not overflowing anymore. And this is where the next exercise that we're going to talk about here is comes in, right? It's the time to start making the call as to which stressors we can start to eliminate in order to keep that bucket from overflowing moving forward. And these might be long-term changes, or they might be short-term changes, but we need to take action at this point in order to prevent you from becoming overly stressed. So, the first thing, there's two parts to this exercise. The first thing we want to do is take what I like to call, and I might have borrowed this term from somewhere, I believe, but a stress audit. And this is basically, you're going to sit down, hopefully, in a time where you can carve out 5 to 10 minutes of your day, um, where you can sit down and say, okay, I realize that I'm a little overstressed here. I have too many things going on. I need to look at all the stressors in my life, and then um, from that list, I'm gonna start deciding what I'm gonna do about this. Right. So you're gonna sit down for 5 to 10 minutes. I personally like to use pen and paper when I do this. I would advocate you also do this and not do it in your head, because it's more impactful when you see it written down. You can use your phone if you really want to, but you just need a pen and paper. You can throw away this paper once you're done with the exercise. But basically, you're gonna write down all the stressors in your life, and we want to be in a clear state of mind while we're doing this, right? Lots of times we have stressors that we don't even think or realize are stressors, right? I like to kind of think about something that's kind of slightly tangential to this, but like people who have sleep apnea, right? If you have sleep apnea, you're stopping breathing throughout the night, and most people aren't even aware that they're doing it, right? They need to have a partner or someone to tell them, or maybe there's some other sign in their blood work or whatever. There's other markers that come up that show them are doing it, but lead them down the path of discovering they have sleep apnea. But most people have sleep apnea have no idea they're even doing that. And so and this is a huge stressor on the body. Like, it's a massive stressor on the body, because your body needs oxygen, and so when you stop breathing while you're sleeping, it's quite detrimental. But you're not even aware of it, right? You have no idea about this massive stressor that's negatively affecting your health, and you have no idea. So there's other examples of stress that people either just don't perceive as being stressful, they just accept it, or they're not even aware that it's causing stress, right? So another example would be like your diet or exercise. Um, Diet and exercise, especially if you're either over consuming or under consuming calories is a stressor on your body. Most people view when they go on a diet, a fat loss diet, that they're under eating calories. They think it's a good thing, right? And they're obviously doing it hopefully for health reasons to improve their health, but it is a stressor on their body, right? Same thing with exercise. Exercise is obviously viewed as a good thing to do, and people view it as such. But if you're trying to do high intensity interval training 6 days a week, like that's a massive stressor on your body, right? And but it's viewed as perceived as a good thing, right? So when you sit down and write out this list of stressors, you have to think of everything. Whether you view it as something that's beneficial, that's trying to move you forward, it could be something like a course that you're taking to for further education, or it could be something that's happening at work that's you're trying to progress your job forward, or it's something like diet or something like exercise. Um, uh, you know, um, Another example would be intermittent fasting. Like fasting long periods of times puts a stress on your body, but again, it's viewed as a good thing. So you have to be very mindful about the things that we're doing, and even though they might be things that we're trying to do to either improve our health and wellness or improve our careers or improve ourselves as a human being, sometimes these things add stress. And in times where you have a lot of it, you have to take out things that are perceived as being good. So if you're doing a lot of fasting, for example, right? I'm just going to pick on fasting for a second, but this is true of any dietary approach. um, you might have to cut out the fasting. You might have to eat 3 meals a day, right? Because the fasting is a stress and this will get into our next part of this discussion, part two of this exercise. But fasting is something that's under your control, and maybe some of the other stresses are not, like whether your kids are sick or is not under your control. Whether whether you have a something that came up at work that was thrown on your plate that you weren't anticipating, work deadline is approaching, not under your control. You got to get that stuff done. Whether you have an elderly person that you're taking care of, you can't not show up for that person. You have to show up for that person, right? So there's lots of things, stresses in your life that are not going to be under your control, but something about the way you're eating, the way you're exercising, extracurricular, I'm not saying that word right, activities that you're doing are all under your control and maybe don't need to be done, right? If you're taking a self-paced course, you don't have to be up late at night studying for that. Like it's at your pace. If you don't study for it, you don't work on the course for 2 weeks because something else has come up, you're not losing out, right? It's a self-paced course. You don't have to do that stuff, right? So we have to look at the stressors, right? And then we list it all out. We're gonna then next is now we're gonna move into this pruning stage, right? So we have all our stressors listed out on our paper. We're trying to be as inclusive as possible. Even things that might be viewed as good things are included on that list. And then we're going to go through and try and prune the ones out that we can eliminate, right? And so, like I said, the first ones there's kind of fall into the three buckets. There's the ones that you have complete control over, like the way you're eating, that type of stuff, the way you're exercising, when you're working out, how hard you're working out, that type of stuff, right? And then there's things that you have some control over, like maybe you can balance things better with a spouse, or who's picking up the kids, who's dropping off the kids, that type of stuff. You have things like that that are you have some control over. And then there are things like that you have no control over, right? Like you have someone you're taking care of that needs your assistance. You're their primary caretaker. You have a work deadline that's coming up that needs to be done. You have a sick child. You have just commitments that have been made and you have to honor and you can't do anything about, right? That maybe they may be added to your plate unwillingly, but like there's stuff that you have to take care of, right? Um, and like another good example of something that's completely under your control is like social media, the news, that type of stuff. Like if you're willingly watching the news and it's stressing you out, you can stop doing that. The world will go on. You'll empty your bucket, right? If you're getting a lot of stress from things you're doing on social media or seeing on social media, like that is under your control. You do not have to look at that stuff. You will, I guarantee that you will survive uh, without doing that stuff. So now you're going to look at the things on that list that you just wrote out and which ones are under your control, right? And what can you do to modify them? It might mean stopping the diet. It might mean exercising less. It might mean stopping using social media for a period of time. It might mean, like I said, talking to your spouse and trying to see if you can get better balance between the two of you with taking care of the kids. It might be talking to a family member to help out with taking care of someone in your family that you've been helping out with, right? You just have to look for, some middle ground here and start cutting out stressors. And some of these things might be you might find stick permanently. You just permanently take them out of your life, and some of them might be temporary, right? You might stop the diet you're on for now for 2 weeks while you take care of this big work project that's really taking up a lot of time, or you might go from working out 4 days a week down to 2 days a week just for a temporary period of time while you take care of these other stressors. You might eliminate social media from your life for a month. And then you might realize that, hey, I don't really need this anymore. Why was I doing it in the first place? And you never go back to it, right? There's lots of things, right? Um, and then finally, we're going to look for opportunities here with some extra time that we have because we've taken out some. Maybe like so, for example, you're cutting down your exercise, or you're trying to load balance better with your spouse and take care of the kids, or you're trying to find other family members to help you out. Ideally, some of that time that you get back to alleviate some of the stress, you're going to do self care. Right? This might mean meditation, might mean replacing a day at the gym with just going for a walk in nature. It might mean you know taking some of that time that you got back and going and do an activity that you find relaxing, right? Maybe it's surfing, or maybe it's sewing, maybe it's just reading, maybe it's just going to sit in the sauna for a little bit, maybe it's working on your garden, whatever, right? Like you're gonna have to do something to take some of that little extra time you got, put it into self care, again, helping lowering that stress a little bit and getting you back to a better your homeostatic stress bucket, right? You want this stress bucket to be more in line, right? And again, some of these things are going to be temporary, some of these things will be permanent, but we can't ever eliminate all stress from our lives. So we have to, you know, roll with the punches, kind of mitigate what we can. And that's what this audit and pruning exercise is all about. So to summarize here, after you've navigated this stressful situation with some of the tools we talked about last week, what you're going to do is you're going to perform a two-part exercise. First, you're going to do a stress audit. You're going to list out all your stressors, even ones that you view that might be viewed as good stressors. You're going to list all of them out. Then you're going to look at that list and you're going to say which ones are in my control, which ones do I have some control over, and which ones do I have no control over. So the ones that are in your control and the ones that you have some control over, you can start to do something about. You can eliminate them, you can modify them, you can tweak them in some way to take them off your plate, right? And not have them in your life so that you can lower the load of stress in your life and bring that back to a better place. And then over time, you might add them back in um, if you see them necessary, or you might keep them out forever. Either way, but that exercise will then bring you back to a better balance moving forward, so you can get back to your normal life. So I hope you enjoyed this Mastering the Basics series. I really enjoyed doing it. I hope you learned a lot. As always, if you want to keep up with all the future content that I put out in this from my blog and my newsletter and stuff like that, and future videos, please join my newsletter using the QR code here up in the corner. Scan that with your phone, you'll be brought to a page where you can sign up for my newsletter, enter your email address there, and I will email you all the content that I put out in the future so you can keep up to date with it and not have to stalk me anywhere, especially if you're eliminating social media from your life due to stress. That would be good. And if you do need help, I do have one-on-one spot open for a more hands-on approach to health and wellness. I work with all kinds of clients, all kinds of people, and all kinds of goals. So please feel free to reach out. The best way to do that is go to my webpage, rjbhealth.coach, Right on the homepage, there's a discovery call button, schedule a discovery call button. Click on that, fill out the form, and once you do that, I will get back to you and we can chat a little bit more about doing some one-on-one coaching if you're interested in that. Once again, thanks for joining me in this series. I really hope you really hope you enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and as always, if you need any help, please reach out with questions.